Hello, my name is Daniella Blechner. I'm an author, book journey mentor, founder of a company called Conscious Dreams Publishing. We work with authors from all over the world and help them to get their valuable stories and powerful messages out there in the form of books. So the bookshelf behind me are just a number of books that we have published over the last 18 months. So we've published over 40 books over the last 18 months. And the reason I set this up because I'm passionate about providing a platform for unseen, unheard voices to really get out there in a way where they can be valued, they can be heard authentically, and to be really of service to others. And we're always looking for books that educate, inspire and empower in some kind of way. And I set this up again because being an author myself, I know how hard it is to make it in the industry. I know how hard it is to publish a book, especially when you don't know which way to turn. Especially when you don't know which way to turn. So I set this up so that we have everything in one place: the editors, the typesetters, the cover designers, the distributors, the assistants, the mentoring, all in one place, the PR, the promotion, all in one place, that you're not having to outsource different places, not knowing who to turn to, not knowing where to go, not knowing whether or not you've got a good editor. I'm passionate about empowering authors through that process. So often I speak to authors and they couldn't tell you, how many books they've sold or how many royalties they've, accrued, because somebody's in control of that. So we do all the work, but we hand over all the control to the authors. So they have 100% copyright, they have 100% control over their royalties and their book journey. And that's really what I'm about. And that stems from my love being an author first and foremost. So how long have I been an author? My very first book I wrote at 10 years old, and I actually have it here. It's come off a little bit. It's called Teddy and Lucille's Great Adventure. And I actually put this together at 10 years old, and I think I made it for one of the young girls that I used to look after, because at the school I was at, we had an opportunity to buddy up and mentor younger girls. I think she was about 4. So I made this for her, but somehow I've ended up with it myself. It was meant to be a pop-up book, you see, the characters can move. So I think there's something really powerful about linking back to our childhood dreams. I remember being asked as a young person very early on by school teachers, what do you want to do when you're older? What do you want to be? And I always said without hesitation, I'm going to be an author. And I said, I was adamant I was going to be an author, when I retired at 40 and I was going to stay at home and write books all day. But the reality was I actually ended up writing 3 books, 4 books, 5 books before now 7 books before my 39th birthday. And I'm actually absolutely loving what I do. My very first book I published in 2014. I was initially writing a children's book, and that's still to come. That's a big project. I finished that children's book in 2009, but my first book was called Mr. Wrong. Mr. Wrong, I hear you say. This is the book, Mr. Wrong. So Mr. Wrong is a collection of stories written by women across the world who've encountered this infamous Mr. Wrong character, but it's also a place to self-discover. Now, it came about through a lot of my own experiences, and I remember friends saying to me, Dan, how do you keep meeting these guys? I don't understand what's going on. You need to write a book. So I said to myself, if I meet one more, I will write a book. I met one more. And it got to the point where the serious side of it was that I realised that I wanted to create something where women could share. I wanted to unite, inspire and empower women, give us a platform where we could share our stories, where we could examine and challenge and question limiting belief systems that we might have about love, relationships and men, and most importantly ourselves. I believe that if you keep on attracting the same sort of incident, the same sort of circumstance, the same sort of person, the same sort of man or woman into your lives, then we need to start looking within what belief systems we have inside that are attracting that. Because everything, I don't believe in blame, everything starts from within. So this is not a man battering book. There's success stories in there too, stories from men, And I learned a lot from the male perspective, actually. And it made me question, do men get a bad rap? Are Mr. Wrong created? How are they created? What role do women play? So there's a lot really in there. There's exercises, reflections, quizzes, there's funny dating disaster stories, but there's also more poignant stories of overcoming abusive relationships in there. It looks at the power of forgiveness, the power of intention setting, the power of really understanding our values. And I really enjoyed writing this book, and I was passionate about getting this book out here. And when I initially tried to get a traditional publishing book deal, which is not easy, by the way, I realised that as I was applying, I'd stopped writing, and in a sense I stopped believing in myself, because I was waiting not for a response, I was waiting for validation. I was waiting for, a big commercial company to say, Danny, you've got great writing capability, which they did. You're really talented, which they did. Your story matters. Your voice matters. You matter, which they didn't. And I realised that if I was to honour these women's stories, and I had to set up something myself where I could create that platform for our stories to get out there, and not just publish books, to actually get books out there on a global scale, to create something where you empower the author and you show them how they can promote, you show them how they can get press for their book, you show them how they can get their book into retailers as opposed to stuck on the shelves. And so it all really started with, well, probably this book at 10 years old, but I mean, this book, which I published in 2014. And from that, I published my second book called 7 Shades of Love, which is a collection of poems from women, men all over the world. Each section is based under a different colour, and I look at the Eastern and Western meanings or representations behind the colours. I look at the chakras as well. I've got a lot of my poems in there too, because I'm a poet first and foremost. I've got various other books as well. I've got Mr. Wrong workbook. I run workbooks in schools, workshops in schools, called 7 Steps to Creating the Greatest Version of You for young girls, to help them to raise their self-esteem, to look at their values. We create vision boards. I've also got 2 self-publishing guides that I've created somewhere. I don't want to start stretching, but they're called, I packed them away. They're called The Book Journey Mentor's Guide to Self-Publishing. So altogether I have 7 books, but I really want to get onto my children's book now and go that way. But I'm quite tied up with really doing my book journey mentoring, which is working with authors and assisting them through the publishing process and helping to get their books out there on a wider scale. How I help to inspire and empower women is I started off, obviously, writing the book Mr. Wrong, and the women who had their stories in there, a lot of them came to events. There was one amazing woman actually who I met online. She'd written a blog about some of her experiences in a domestic abuse situation. So she's a survivor of domestic abuse, and she was anonymous. And she wrote her story in my book, Why I Never Liked Orange Squash. And she lived quite far away from here, about outside of London, about 2-3 hours away. And she came to every single launch I had, every single book signing. And not only that, she actually shared her story when we had the panel. She read her story. And she said the very first time she did it, she was shaking. But she said that doing that really helped her to own her story, but to also let go of that story and to be a beacon of light for others. Because from that, she had people gravitating towards her saying, what you're doing is amazing. I can't believe that you went through that and you overcame it. I've actually come out of a similar situation, or I'm dealing with some similar themes that you speak about. And it's really helped her. And I think the word she used was cathartic, to really move forward from that story. She also did radio interviews as well. She was brilliant. I run a workshop for women called 7 Steps to Creating the Greatest Version of You. So again, looking at some of the exercises in the Mr. Wrong book, and some new ones as well. So we look at your values, we look at our needs, wants and desires, we look at the power of forgiveness, we look at gratitude, we look at the importance of having fun, creating a vision, creating vision boards. And I've run quite a few of these workshops now. I do them in schools now with young girls too. My publishing company was initially very much for women. I mean, my main audience, we do publish books for men as well, but my main audience are women. And I'm especially interested in meeting you know, ordinary women with extraordinary stories. The women I speak to who've overcome so many things in their life, it's just phenomenal, and they just don't know how to get their story out there in a way that people will listen, or how to publish a book, or how to structure their story in a way that is engaging and enticing, and someone's going to pick it up. So we just assist them through that journey. It's not just about publishing a book, you know, pressing publish and the books come out, you know, of the machine. It's about looking at the whole vision. So we help women to, you know, find speaking engagements. You know, what kind of organisations do they want to affiliate themselves with? Are they looking for sponsorship? Do they need to raise finances to publish their book? Do they want to have, you know, interviews with radio stations? What radio stations? What events would they like to go at? How can they strengthen their confidence in terms of public speaking? Because when you have a book, it's really important to be able to go out there and speak in front of an audience about your book. It puts you in front of that live audience there and then. So that's really important. So really we're about empowering people, but I'm very much, you know, I'm very much passionate about inspiring and empowering women, especially, and that's pretty much what we do and how we inspire and empower women.
My name is Marcus Albert Stephen, and I am the creator of the Black History colouring book. The inspiration that led me to creating the colouring book itself was I myself have I would say a good knowledge of Black history, and I have a deep passion to continue learning about Black history. I also have a passion to teach Black history in the future, whether that be in schools, Saturday schools, on a university level. My background of working with young people is working with secondary school children, students who have been kicked out of secondary schools. I've briefly worked with primary school students, but if I was to teach in the future, I'd most likely want to naturally teach secondary school students. But I thought to myself, how can I teach primary school students Black history? Hence why I came up with the Black History colouring book. I feel it's an interactive way in which they can learn. They can enjoy the colouring inside and also the educational side with the facts in the book. They can sit down with their parents and do it. And I feel it's just an all-round great way for children of all races to learn about Black history.
So our most recent book, which I'm really excited about, is called the Black History Colouring Book. So 6 months ago, we were approached by a young man called Marcus Albert Stephen, who is a 22-year-old learning mentor who is passionate about educating young people about key Black figures throughout history, past to present. He wanted to celebrate the achievements of key Black figures in history. And here is his book, the Black History Colouring Book. So we're really excited about this one. You might recognise a few of the key figures on the front here. We have Madam C.J. Walker, we have Mary Seacole, Marcus Garvey, Queen Nzinga. We have some illustrations inside. We have, so what he provided us with was some of these key characters. So we've got Malcolm X here, and he gave us 10 key bullet points that he wanted us to focus on. And one of our illustrators, Jason Lee, who's absolutely awesome. He's also illustrated some of our other books, for example, Mum, I Want to Pee, and 2 other books called Clever Carmel and Renee's Magical Wellington Boots. He illustrated this book and it's done really well. It sold 330 copies on day of publish. I think we might be up to 450 now, I'm not sure. It's a great educational tool, and I think it's something that's really, really important, not just for Black History Month, which is a month, October, where Black history is celebrated, but something that should be used within the school system, weaved into the curriculum, so that young Black girls and boys, like myself growing up, weren't deluded into thinking that our history was slavery. Because as far as I remember, all I learned about my history or my culture was slavery. And that was it. But there are so many powerful inventors, scientists, freedom fighters, people who were self-made, movers and shakers, leaders from the Black community that aren't celebrated. Even the Black men who went to war in England, they were very much forgotten figures. I didn't know about that until I watched, I think the film was called Red Tails. So it's really just putting these figures, writing them back into history and teaching young people in a fun and engaging way from a very young age. So that really is a Black History colouring book. It is it's $7.99. I don't know how much that is in dollars. You can get it from Amazon and all good retailers. Amazing book, really fun, some great colouring fun here, and a keepsake that you can keep forever and cherish. So that is the Black History colouring book. I want to kind of talk about the tail end of 2018. I've had this book come through the door, which is our latest book. It's called Hey Tree, What Shall I Be? Beautifully illustrated. Look at that, beautifully illustrated. It's written by a Californian man called Josh Shelton and illustrated by Sam Polenza. So both of them are based in California. We've never met. He contacted me having stumbled across my website, said that he was really excited. He really wanted to publish this. The aim of this book really is to connect young people back to their childhood innocence, to this idea of exploring and playing and not coming from a fixed mindset. You know, often as young people we're asked, you know, what do you want to be, what you're going to do, or we push our ideals onto these young people, but actually maybe they just want to be like the tree. They just want to be. And I think often we forget just how to be. Literally, we're always trying to be something, but we forget how to be. And that's what the book is about, really. It's quite exciting. So that's it. Hey Tree, What Shall I Be? Coming out on the 30th of November. We have Polarity of Love, which is a poetry book coming out on the 5th of December. We have a book coming out in January written by a 13-year-old girl called Mikkel. She has written an 84,000 word sci-fi novel, so exciting, featuring a young Black female protagonist on the front cover. Absolutely beautiful. I don't even know how to start describing the book, but she writes with effortlessly, like it's someone who's been writing for years. Really, really, really gripping book. If you're into sci-fi, this is your thing. That's coming out. It's called XX15. Find a Limit, Break It. So that's coming out January 2019. We also have another book coming out about the menopause, actually, and andropause, which is similar to the menopause, but it's what men suffer from. Often we call it, I think, midlife crisis, but actually it's andropause. A lot of people don't know that. It's called Change is Coming. That is coming out in January as well, 2019. We have another book coming out in March called Healing Messages Within. This lovely young lady that I am mentoring called Janessa Kwa. Cool name, I know. Her book is really about self-love, overcoming a lot of the challenges that she faced in her life. Really great book. We have some other poetry books coming out as well, one called February, another one called Inspirations. So quite a few things cooking, ready for 2009. We're really excited about that. So stay tuned to Conscious Dreams Publishing. So advice I'd give to authors, really. The first one is to have belief in yourself. Because quite often we can make excuses or find reasons as to why we shouldn't do things. One of them is time. Another one is lack of knowledge. Another one is lack of money. But I believe all of these stem from a lack of self-belief. The knowledge you can find, the knowledge is out there. Hire yourself a book journey mentor, like myself. You know, research online. There's a plethora of information there. Buy books about getting published. Create time. You can create time. You get up an hour earlier, find pockets of time in the day that you have, start to write down what you do on the hour every hour and see where those pockets of time are that you can actually invest in your book. Funds. We assist people with crowdfunding campaigns that can help you to, you know, raise the finances for your book. When I first published Mr. Wrong, I did a crowdfunding campaign and I raised £1,100 in 6 weeks to publish and distribute my book, and it absolutely works. So I think all of these fundamentally are excuses that stem from a lack of self-belief and maybe feeling that, you know, people aren't interested in your story, or people might criticize your story, or maybe feeling vulnerable that your work is out there. You're going to feel vulnerable. We've just got to push past that and step out your comfort zone. Nothing great was ever achieved within the comfort zone, ever. So I think if you believe that you have a valuable story, and more to the point, you believe you have a story that can educate, inspire, transform, empower, assist, serve someone else in another way, then really, really connect to why you're writing that and what that impact's going to be. And that leads probably, to my number one key factor for everyone really, no matter what you're doing, but especially if you're writing a book, to have a really clear why. Now with Mr. Wrong, I knew why I was writing that. I wasn't writing that because I wanted to, write about, all my stories. I mean, I've only got probably about 2 or 3 in there, but it wasn't about battering anybody. It wasn't about, just sharing stories for the sake of it. I am passionate about giving us a platform to share our stories, not to sweep things under the carpet, to share our stories and to learn from each other, to learn from our past experiences, to learn from our past relationships and use them as absolute bedrock to create something better. I found that there are so many books out there that told us, especially women, how to behave, how to dress, what to say, how to, play games in order to get a man, but nothing that told us how to love ourselves deeply and wholly, nothing that told us how to understand the power and importance of knowing what our values are, nothing that told us the power of forgiveness, how to forgive, the power of intention setting, the power of visualization, the power of learning from our own mistakes, and also the idea that knowing that we never lose power when we come to realize that what comes into our life or what we've attracted in our life is a result of a choice that we've made. And if we've made a choice, then we're able to make another choice to create a different set of circumstances. So that really was my why behind the book. And I think the clearer you are about why you're doing something, the clearer that message will shine through in the book, but also shine through every interview you do, every person that you speak to, every article that you write about your book, for example. So number 1 is going to be know your why. Number 2 is have a clear vision. So your book just isn't about what the cover looks like or the fact you've got physical product. It's what are you going to do with this physical product. So I might say to Josh, well, what you could do with this, you could create a series. Look at the bigger vision. You could create a series of books. You could go into schools. You could create workshops around connecting back to that innocent childlike sense. You could create workshops about how to be, mindfulness, meditation, connecting to yourself. I mean, anything, pick the themes of your book and create something from there. You might want to create, for example, let's pick another book, Diet Starts Monday, a book that was published by one of our authors who is a nutritionist. From this book, she could create an online course based around the different chapters. So always thinking bigger. What organisations do you want to contact that are doing something similar to you? How can you collaborate together? How can you form a joint venture? What speaking engagements would you like to have? What events can you go to? Who are you going to network with to, see if you can speak at an event? It's growing your network and getting yourself in front of the right people. So building that vision, and that also includes, what press you want to get into, because it's great that your friends and family might know about a book, or a couple of people on social media if you have a social media account. But you want to get into the paper. You want everyone. This could be your life work. You want to get out there. You want to create a list of newspapers that you want to be in, online magazines, radio interviews that you want. Create that list before your book is even out and start contacting them so that you're well prepared. What libraries do you want to speak at? Where do you want to do book signings? What retailers do you want to get your book into? It's not easy, but it's possible. We've got about 5 of our authors. We've got a book up there, Climbing Clouds, Catching Comets, compiled by the mother of this wonderful young man here who passed away at age 21 after an 18-month battle with brain cancer. He was an amazing man. This is a collection of his poems from age 15 to 21, just before he passed away. He went to the Houses of Parliament at 18 and really spoke out against the unfair stop and search. He'd been searched over 20 times as a 21-year-old, from 15 to 21, for no due cause. And so he spoke out about that in the Houses of Parliament. He's someone who really lived his life, and he's got his book, he's got his story, his biography written by his mother, and his poems in a book. His poems are just phenomenal. They're profound. They was incredibly moving. This book is now in 5 bookstores in London. So it's more than possible to do this. So number 2 was to build a vision. Number 3 is to be really clear about your audience. Who are you writing for? Quite often when I speak to authors, I say, you know, who's your book for? Everyone. That's true. Anyone can read your book, but your book is never for everyone. If you say your book is for everyone, you're doing your target market an incredible disservice. So the clearer you can be about your target market, where you can find them, what their likes, what their dislikes are, what are they, you know, where do they hang out? How can you get in front of them? The more justice you will do for your book. You'll be able to know what kind of language to use. You'll be able to know what kind of speaking engagements that you want. So be really clear about your target market so that your book speaks to that target market. Really, really important. So those are the 3 things I would say. I mean, and overarching all of that is have belief in yourself. Life is incredibly short. It is but a blip. It really is. So if there's a passion, if there's something that you've always wanted to do, I speak to people all the time and they say, I've been wanting to write a book for 10 years, or why haven't you done it? Why? So my advice is, if you have something that you're passionate about and you have a story that you feel really needs to be out there, you can make people laugh with your story, you can inspire, you can serve, you can empower in some way, get that book written and the rest will sort itself out. Connect yourself to the right people, do your research, raise finances, find the time to really get that book out, and think about that person who needs to hear your story the most. So I have been Daniella Blechner. I hope that's been helpful to you. You can find us on our website, which is www.consciousdreamspublishing.com. Email is info@consciousdreamspublishing.com. We're on Facebook, consciousdreamspublishing.com, and Instagram, Conscious Dreams Publishing. So thank you so much for this interview. It's been awesome. You are amazing. If you're interested in having a free 30-minute consultation to talk through your idea, no matter what stage of the process you're at, please do get in touch with me and I would be honoured to speak with you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.